It gets bigger when you record.
Is that right? I'm surprised.
It fills the whole screen now. Before it was smaller, and then when you said let's record, it jumped up.
Cool. So, what were the 3 types of resources covered in week 3?
I heard an echo.
It's inconsistent. Don't worry. That's not a smoke bomb to distract you.
Oh.
Is that the knowledge of the students, the different types of students, or is that something?
Good idea. Right here. The ready resources for the references, the games, and the tools.
Oh yeah.
Okay. These are factors that minimize preparation. There's 4, one of which is the resources, and the subcategories are references, games, and tools. Okay. We're not going to look at this too deeply. This is the slide from the previous lesson, and this is just about the many resources that exist. Most of them are free online. That's where I recommend you go first. Then you can start investing in your own book library. Okay, then games. These were some of the conversation games that I recommended for one-on-one. Guess the animal or 20 questions, basically the same thing. This or that, really easy. Do you prefer shrimp? Or who knows what, right? Start a conversation. Collaborative story is very fun. One person says a sentence of the story, the next person continues. Make a connection, creative, where you have 2 things and you try to make some kind of arbitrary connection between them. And then questions are the answer is like a mind trip. So we won't get too much into that. That's where you can only, no matter what someone asks you, you can only ask with another question. Like, are you going to the game today? Which game do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so on. It gets difficult. Okay. Question 10. What were the 4 tools for online English tutoring covered here? So that, again, was from lesson 3. We did the training where after that week we met over Skype or Zoom again. What were the 4 tools?
4 tools.
Talking about like the whiteboard box and the screen share?
And the screen share and the split screen.
Yeah, organization technique. And the last one was
tools. Tools. Articles.
Articles. Just because they're so readily available, I consider it like a go-to standard video call resource. So yeah, screen share, split screen, whiteboard, and articles. Those are your video call tools. I think that's all you need. Right, week 4. We did the project cycle and the writing cycle. Question 11. What is the project cycle in a classroom setting? It's actually kind of a lot to describe. So you remember it a little vaguely?
Yeah.
Is
that where you you sort of assign the project in the class and explain it? And then the correction?
Yes, that's the middle component.
It's the middle one, and then the revision, the final project.
Exactly. So let's take a look at the diagram. Okay. So it has 3 basic components. Each one lasts 20 minutes because that occupies a 60-minute lesson. So the first thing you do is you assign some sort of project where the students can work together to make something presentable. In order to do that, they communicate together in English, and they get up and they talk about it in English. Wow, a job skill, that's great. And then the teacher can correct their mistakes, and that is directly incorporated into the project they made. If the teacher has in mind something that they think they won't use, but that they're ready to use in such a project, you can teach it in the middle also. I talked about comparatives. So we made a brochure about vacation destinations, and in the second component, I asked them, oh, now that you know how to make comparatives, could you talk about which one is more expensive than the other? which one is cheaper or hotter, and so on. So then the students go back to work, communicating and fixing everything. Cycle finishes. Okay, so what is the teacher's role in the project cycle?
To guide and be a resource.
That's right, exactly right.
And,
So please.
oh, I was just going to say, and revise or instruct once they receive something, provide input, I guess, maybe.
That's right. So during the, what should I call them? The beginning and maybe the caps. So on the two sides, the teacher is the resource. Besides giving the instruction, after that, basically, they'll just be present to offer whatever help they can, because they have an infinite store of English inside them that can be relevant. Then they take over a traditional role of instruction in the middle, instruction and correction. Very nice. So just what we said. Great job, Ruth. Question 13. What is the writing cycle for an individual student?
First draft, right?
That's right. First draft.
Correction.
Exactly.
Revision.
Cool. So yeah, that can go on until you're satisfied. So again, first draft, same thing, except the students basically working by themselves, but they can ask the teacher for input and correction during the process. You could do that during a meeting. I don't recommend it. Like I said, if you're meeting together, probably you should practice the speaking. Have this writing component be done at home. And then the correction and input is when you come together and you revise the essay. And you say, these are all the corrections, please rewrite it. They go home and do it again, and it goes through. I said that from experience, it seems that a single essay probably takes 2 meetings, if each is 1 hour long, to go through all of it, and then they can correct it. Okay, so question 14, simple. What is the teacher's role in the writing cycle?
Input.
Go ahead. So I was going to say Ruth gave the answer last time. Let's have Britt give the answer.
Guiding and as a resource and a guide.
Exactly. Yep. Awesome. Same image. Okay, beautiful. So let's take a look at the road behind. This is where we came from. Look at this. May 20th, we started with week 1. That was the overview, importance of the tutor. You're basically the trainer, and how speaking is relevant. Then in week 2, we looked at big goals and the stackable lesson plans. Week 3, preparation, resources, tools, and video calls. Then last week, we did project integration and writing, and we finished. Conclusion. So you've come a long way. How do you feel?
Exhausted.
That's good. Yeah, you know a lot now, which is pretty awesome. Lesson plan feedback. Are you ready? Okay. So this is the provisional criteria for evaluation. We'll keep it simple. We're just going to ask who is the student? What is the objective for the student? What is the logic of the lesson plan? And how well do the components serve the student? So let's take a look. Who would like to go first?
Wait,
We're going to go on a volunteer basis, so I'm not going to call on anybody.
I'll go because you've already seen it, right? I could use my 4 seasons, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, that's what I kept.
Do you want to share, or do you want to just explain it orally?
I can share it. I guess it's probably easier.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I do that with this screen? Yeah. It says you cannot screen share while the other participant is sharing.
Stop the share. I think you should be free.
Okay. Let's see, is this free? There. Oops. There. Hold on. You guys still there?
Yep.
Yeah.
It definitely changed something, but we're here.
Yeah. It's like very tiny. Like, all right. All right, now you're not. Oh, hold on. There you go. Sorry, you guys went this small. I guess you just go like that. Or just pick anything.
Cool.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I'm looking at Zoom.
Zoom.
So we're gonna have to look at your document. There we go.
Some icons now. There.
Perfect.
So this is a lesson that I made for Masha, just trying to figure out what she may know and might not know. And so it was just to talk about the weather and the different seasons that there are. So I wrote them out. Then I just broke them down and I showed them by picture. And then each one of them. And then what I did is then for the repetition, I took away the word and then I just showing her the picture and then adding it back in for her. And then I continue to do that for each one of the seasons. And then in order to keep the conversation and keep it conversational and to keep her thinking about what the season's winter relates to, I thought I'd add some sports to connect it. Ice skating, skiing, sledding. And then I did the same thing as far as the repetition. I showed images with language and without language, and yeah. Then I thought I would ask her what she enjoyed doing during the winter, so that to draw her out in her discussion, to make sure we were all talking about the same thing. And then I did the same thing throughout all the seasons. I can erase through here. Showing with the language, without, and then have the same conversation.
Very nice.
And then ended it with just the 4 seasons again, explaining what we had.
Very cool.
That's it.
Was that a PowerPoint that you did?
No.
No.
I'm not that great with PowerPoint, so this is just Word.
Oh.
And I just dropped it into a Word document. And the images I pulled from Google Images. So when you can search a topic, and if you click on images, you just get images.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was getting. That's where I got that from. And so I was thinking also if I was going to do this with her son Jima. I don't know a lot about 9-year-old boys, but I was thinking, okay, maybe I'd put skateboarding in or something like that. I was trying to also think about him and what he might be interested in talking about. So I was like, okay, he doesn't really care about the weather, but he might like to talk sports. And that was just a way to I was trying to overlap it into that also, because I don't know, it's just the beginning. I'm just trying to find out what he likes. I mean, he might not like sports, and I'll find that out, so.
Well, that's awesome. I especially like how you think about the students and their interests. So you're visualizing who your student is. So as far as our first criterion, who is the student? Great job. Let's talk about your objective. So can we identify the objective here?
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, go ahead. Anybody. This is an open forum right now.
I was just trying to explain the 4 seasons.
Very nice. So
and you were kind of evaluating what level she was at too, to see if she knew these words, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Diagnostic. Cool. Okay. So what is the logic of this lesson plan?
I don't know if there's any exact logic.
I think there's a lot of logic involved. Because you have the repetition, you have the whole unit of the year broken down into its components, associated with the sports that are played during that time, and then associated with what she likes to do during that time. So you have that repetition and cycle in larger contexts. So that, you allow me, I think that's the logic of your plan.
Mm,
What do you think?
I'll agree with that. That sounds good.
Okay, so it's good. It doesn't conform to the models that we've talked about, but we see that you don't have to make a lesson plan that's like the project cycle. You don't have to do one that's the stackable one. So, great job. Okay, so how well do the components serve the student? Now that you've met her, what do you think? Is this the right thing for her?
I think it would be helpful, guys, because she, I think, needs to be able to identify with the images, with the words. So that's why, like, when we were reading from this past week, and it had the lists of things, possible materials that I could use for her. If anything that has pictures for her, I think it will be very helpful because she can speak, but I think it's just definitely going to have to be with images, just the visual learning initially, and with the repetition and with the conversation, we can talk to her.
Right, awesome. So let's do a Zoom applause. The Zoom applause is this. Everyone shake your hands. But
That's it.
Tom, help us out. All right, good. Great job, Ruth.
Too.
Yeah, so I learned that from a different meeting, and I thought it was pretty good.
I never heard of that.
So, great. Who would like to go next? We'll do one more, because we...
Well, I would like to share what I did if I can show you. I did a PowerPoint I've never done before.
Okay.
So it was something new to me. I don't know if I can I
Sure.
share it here?
Try
Let's
it.
see. Let's see if I can do that.
Okay,
Where
beautiful.
did I find? Where did it go? It was on my desktop.
Is it saved to your hard drive?
Shoot.
If you want, go down to that type here to search and just do PPT.
I don't think it's on my, shoot, I don't
Did you
think
do
it's
it
on
online?
here. Yeah, but see, I don't have Word and I don't have it on my computer, but
Try the
I have
OneDrive.
it. Yeah, that's where it's at. Okay. So I did two. One was a quiz and the other was the answers to the quiz.
Beautiful.
So I didn't know, well, come on.
That looks good.
It's coming up slowly, I guess. Okay, quiz one. So what I did was I said, oh, here, I'm going to give you a quiz.
Mhm.
Of course, she couldn't possibly know the answers to these things. It's a multiple choice quiz. What is my favorite color? Okay. Where was I born? And I gave her all these choices. Okay. And
Oh,
how many siblings do I have? To see if she knew the word siblings, which no problem. And so on. How many children? What kind of pet? And this was all to see if she knew these words, and she knew them all. So it was,
diagnosis.
yeah,
Good.
yeah. And it also, what it did was it was a conversation starter. And I wanted her, I was going to originally say, okay, now you do the same thing. But it ended up when we did the answers that she would talk about her, so with the answers, I had pictures. So this might take a little longer to open up. Answers. And then it turned out that we had a lot of things in common because, okay, question one. Let's say this is my favorite color.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Wisconsin.
How about that? Fine state.
I have 3 sisters. And then she was asking me where they live, and I said, well, this one lives in Denver. And she said, oh, my daughter lives in Denver. So we kept back and forth as to, we had things in common like that. And here's my beautiful daughters. And she has 3 children. Here's my pet bird.
Ah, I've heard him speak before.
You've heard him. And crocheting, which she knits, crochets, and sews.
Oh, wow.
And she kind of pointed out in her country, you had to sew because you couldn't buy clothes, and they had to make their own when she was living there. They had to knit things, they had to sew them. So anyway, and I live in West Haven. I found all the pictures online. Some of these are stock pictures online, and some of them were pictures from my, saved on my computer.
Interesting thing about nonprofits is there's a lot of leeway. So even if you use something that ordinarily might be subject to copyright, because it's nonprofit, it doesn't infringe on anyone's rights. Don't take my word for that. Use your best judgment.
Yeah, so I got the PowerPoint from my account at school. They have Word and they have PowerPoint and they have all those things. So I logged in to my school email, and that's how I got through these things. So anyway, this started a conversation, and we talked about where we were from, and we talked about our families, and we got to know each other really well this way. And originally I was going to have her write an essay, but she topped me. She came up with an essay she had already written, and she gave it to me, and it was 2 pages long. And I said, why don't you email it, and I'll go through it, and we'll talk about it next time, because it would have taken the whole class to just talk about that. And
Very
then
nice.
and then I ended the class with a joke. And I didn't know if she would understand this joke, because it's a punctuation joke. Do you know this one?
No.
The panda joke?
Let's take a look. Am I supposed to read this?
Yeah.
Then I'll be laughing silently to myself.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead and tell the joke?
Okay. Panda walks into a bar. He orders a sandwich, eats it, then draws a gun and fires 2 shots in the air. Why? Asks the confused waiter as the panda walks towards the exit. The panda produces a badly punctuated wildlife manual and tosses it over his shoulder. I'm a panda, he says at the door. Look it up. The waiter turns to the relevant entry and sure enough finds an explanation. Panda, large black and white bear-like mammal, native to China, eats, shoots, and leaves.
It's good.
Favorite punctuation joke. So there were some pretty big words in there, and she understood it. And I said, do you get, that there's 2 meanings to the word shoot and 2 meanings to the word leaves? And yeah, and that's why it's funny. And yeah, she did get it. So she's
Very
pretty
nice.
good.
So yeah, we're going to touch briefly on features of English at the end. And punctuation, actually, I didn't think about. So thanks for reminding me. At the same time, it's how you demarcate the parts of the sentence, which is one of the key features of English. So
There's there's a really good book called Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. If you haven't read it, you got to get it.
joke book.
No, it's all about punctuation, written by this British writer, and she's a stickler. And if you're any kind of stickler for punctuation, you'll love it. She sees, I won't go into it, but she goes into each type of punctuation, even like the history of it. When was italics invented? When did the question mark come about? Really details about the different types of punctuation, but it's in a written in a very funny way.
All right, thanks for the recommendation. I'll add it to my library.
Yeah, you should.
So we'll go through our criteria. Who is the student in this situation? When you made it, did you know who she was?
No. And I wasn't aware of what her level was going to be.
So what is the objective for the student?
My objective?
Yes. Anyone. If
Um,
you, this is again open forum. I know you're on the spot, Britt. You would know better than the rest of us. What is the objective for the students?
Well, I think it was, and I was going to do this first to see if they knew the interrogative and the question, the question words, and she obviously knew that, and to show that there was no way she could know the answers. So to not be afraid of taking a quiz, just guess, and there's no, there's no way to know the answer. So it's just kind of a break the ice thing.
Yes, and it was excellent. The lesson plan will change when you know the student. So because we're starting, it's no surprise that there's this diagnostic element. The objective is not just to give the student an English language experience, it's to know, it's to get in sync with each other on where the student is and where to go. So you remember the key values of the trainer. You have to identify, step one, identify where the student is. Really, that is step one. Okay, so what is the logic of the lesson plan? Can I give you my assessment?
Yes.
Right. So the logic of the assessment of the lesson plan is first to create that environment where you are in a place where you know each other. It's like that personal connection. So you tell the student about yourself, and that opened up her chance to talk about herself. So now together you started that good relationship. Then you went to the second stage where you get to give the answers with images. So that associates the words. It associates the words with images. That could be beneficial, especially if the student is not at the advanced level. However, when they see your actual pictures from your student, from your life, then that enhances the connection, I guess. You actually have a real thing to fill in that space. So I don't know if you can see this. We have another 10-minute thing. So I guess we're going to have to wrap it up, which we can. So don't worry. I think we can wrap it up. Okay. And then finally, the last part was to end on an interesting high note, which was the joke. So actually, there was a progressive structure to your lesson. Ruth's did not have a progressive structure, but it had like a cyclical structure. It's very interesting. Britt's had this progressive diagnostic structure. Very interesting, and great job. So how well do the components serve the student in this case? What do you think?
As far as getting to know each other, I think it was really good.
Yes.
And she was really saying, "Oh, we have things in common," and it was nice.
Yes. So on that level, as far as the first meeting, I think it's terrific. Because she's advanced, she needs to be challenged more.
Yeah.
Simple enough. So let's move on. Oh, by the way.
I have to stop my screen share.
Yeah, go ahead and stop the screen share. Let's go back to this. Thank you very much. I'm going to screen share. We're going to run through this because we're almost done. It's this, share. Okay. Clicking, pressing the arrow key. There we go. Features of English. When I made this, I realized that it actually deserves its entire own presentation. Probably you could elaborate on all of these things together. And since we're running out of time, I think it actually makes sense to skip over it. We could have worked with this and gone through it, but I wanted to give you an overview of what stands out to me as an English teacher for what students from various language backgrounds need to comprehend and use. And I'll leave it here. We're going to move past it because we're running out of time. But again, you can review this video on YouTube, and you can take a look at all of these subtopics. You'll notice that tenses appears last in the list. I'm not saying it's not important, but most of the things I encounter deal with the other things. And as far as tenses go, I think if you have the core tenses of past, present, future, those students usually can communicate without problems. They can score 7s on the IELTS exam and go study in American universities, no trouble. That said, they probably can receive the many tenses. So they have this ability to understand more complicated nuances, but not necessarily to produce it. As far as production, as long as you make no errors within these tenses or the first expansion, which is the continuous versions of these, probably you'll do all right. But again, we have to develop this topic. Any questions? Okay, we'll leave it at that because we have no idea when it's just going to cut us off. Graduation ceremony.
6 minutes. 6
Oh, it
minutes.
says 6 minutes left? All right, good. Graduation. We'll do that first. Okay, so congratulations, everybody. You made it through the 5-week journey, and now you are fully equipped to teach with us or wherever you want to go afterwards. So I'll give you the Zoom clap again. Okay, I also got everybody some cakes. I brought 2 options. I don't know what kind of mood you're in.
Ooh.
So I guess if you want a piece of the chocolate cake, you can have some of the chocolate cake. I like, fruit cakes. These, I don't mean like the literal like Christmas cake. I mean the ones that have real fruit incorporated. I like the light feeling.
Mhm.
But it's evening, so maybe I'm in the mood for chocolate. I think that's everything. Is there anything else? Yep, it's the end. So let's go back to questions. I'll give you the opportunity. Do you have any questions before I let you free?
I just had one. I know we've talked about the reporting, but I mean, when do we normally, is that done weekly or monthly or
Monthly.
monthly? And so we keep track of it ourselves here and then we just put it in at the end of the month?
That's right. So
Okay.
make sure before you would count your travel time also, but include your preparation time, because any time that you spend for the purpose of this organization is your volunteer contribution. So if you are reading a book, if you're reading Eat, Shoots, and Leaves, that counts. So count that as far as your investment. All right, so I count this as my investment for the volunteer hours, so the teaching I do. Yeah, great question.
So what, are we filling out a time card? What are you talking about?
There's a form on the website. If you go to community, then volunteers, there's hours report. So that's like a 3-step process. We might change that, but if you go to the website, it's not hard to find. Also, when you get the email every month, that leads you right there.
Oh.
Okay, great question. Anything else?
Yeah, Tim, along the same lines, with regard to, I mean, if this all, I mean, obviously there's a few housekeeping issues I've got to take care of and technology things, but is there a large pool of people who need what we are now, well, reasonably competent to do? I mean, is it, are there, assuming everything goes well with Ingrid, are there, I mean, I guess really I'm trying to gauge the need that's in our community.
In the world community, it's massive. So that translates to the immigration into the United States, and the population is high. So there is a large need, and we deal with over 100 students still since the pandemic. And that can grow, especially since we've increased our capabilities. Again, that's why I began with the world need, because if we can meet students from around the world, there's no reason that we can't match a Zoom call, match a tutor and a student for a Zoom call or a Skype call if they're in 2 separate countries. That's what everyone already does. Because if you were in America, actually I've met students in America who are still trying to improve their English, but most of them are attempting to be prepared for when they eventually go. So we might have a much larger pool soon. I'm not making any promises on that. Yes, the pool is large, but I mean, as far as being much larger, yes, that's possible. Right?
And if we have any questions during the whole process, we would just reach out to the center, Tammy or the...
Yep, you can email me also.
Okay.
I'm always happy to help. Britt was there yesterday. I think one of our top priorities is to add a forum and discussion board so you can post questions, and then as a community we can be on the same page.
Okay.
Oh,
So you
great.
have that monthly, that continuing ed class.
Great
monthly.
point. Yeah, so every 3rd Tuesday, that's just how we've done it. I don't see why I would change it, but every 3rd Tuesday I do the continuing ed also. So you can come there and ask any questions. I mean, that's not really the purpose. Come there, please enjoy. But if you have questions, it's a time to ask, I suppose.
It's good to hear the other experienced teachers talk about their problems and their successes and things.
Yes, it's really great.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, big thank you to you, Tim. Really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have to
thank
give him
you.
a Zoom clap.
To all of you guys, all of you guys.
Thanks very much. Yeah, so I really appreciate you coming to this first time that I've taught this. Maybe it's the last time, because now we have YouTube, so this will be a method that we can have training videos. So first and last time, indelible record, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks everybody. So with that, let me, less than 1 minute, it's over.
Yeah.
Farewell. Farewell everybody.
Right.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Nice
See
to
you
meet you
around.
all.
Nice meeting